The pick is in.
25th pick, the New York Giants select Jaxson Dart, quarterback, Ole Miss. Let's bring in Locked On Giants host Patty Traina to break down the pick at 25. So, Patty, the Giants go back to the well to get their guy under center from Oxford. What do you like about the pick of Dart at maybe a safer 25 versus a pick at 6 like Daniel Jones in 2019, but harkening back to another nice pick from Oxford?
Yeah, the Eli Manning connection, right? Giant fans are only hoping that Jaxson Dart turns into the next Eli Manning. But no, seriously, I like this pick because it wasn't a reach. You know, at a certain point, I think in the draft order, you were getting into second round territory. So really what the Giants did, they gave up their second round pick, which, you know, you kind of figured was going to be part of the cost. They gave up one of their third round picks, which, you know, we figured would be the case. And I think they gave a future pick as well. I think it was a future 3. So really not a bad deal. If you think about it, if Jaxson Dart turns out to be the next franchise quarterback for this team, it's really been, you know, it's a good deal. And it's a lot less than what it cost them to get Eli Manning back in the day.
True. So what do you feel like when you look at Jaxson Dart? What's the upside that you see for him, and maybe what's the biggest developmental piece for him?
Yeah, so a lot of Jaxson Dart, there's some similarities to what Josh Allen brought to the table. And of course, you know, Brian Dable, Josh Allen, we all know the story there. He's a big kid. He's got good size, a good arm. You know, he's got some development to do. Obviously, that system down in Ole Miss is a little, you know, unorthodox, if you will. But Brian Dable did a lot of work on him. He mentioned that, you know, the system has its roots to what they did in Alabama. So he didn't think it would be a big transition for the guy to learn it. But, you know, Jaxson Dart has to come in here. He's got to learn the playbook. You know, the Giants offense is not easy to learn. Every player I talk to tells me that. He has to obviously, you know, learn how to be a pro because, you know, being a pro in college and being a pro in the NFL, 2 different things. But a lot of upside, you know, a lot of hope for him, and we'll just see how he develops.
Yeah. And you're right. Interestingly enough, that QB room has gotten a little bit tighter now. There were reports that the Giants had named Russell Wilson as the starting QB. So I guess theoretically no competition between Russ, Jameis Winston, Jaxson Dart, but still is there a legitimate chance or a way where you can see a path that could change where maybe the Giants have a change of heart and go with Dart?
It all depends on how he develops. I think the plan this year is to have him sit behind the 2 veterans. That's why they brought them in. That was really the plan last year had the Giants been able to trade up.
Yeah.
So they're not in a rush to necessarily get Jaxson Dart out on the field. That's what they did with Daniel Jones in retrospect, and we all know how that worked out. So, you know, they built up a better ecosystem now for Jaxson Dart, one that they feel that he will thrive in.
Yeah.
And see, I mean, we'll see how he develops throughout the year and whether he gets his opportunity.
Yeah, and I like the word that you used there, the ecosystem that they built around Jaxson Dart, I think will be a good one for him. And yeah, taking the pressure off of him. Granted, coming from the SEC, obviously there's a different level of pressure coming out of the SEC, but ultimately speaking, there's a whole other level of pressure from the NFL that maybe he won't have to deal with, at least not in the beginning. So giving a good opportunity for Jaxson Dart to kind of get in rhythm with what the Giants want to run and then kind of thrive from there. I'm sure that Brian Dable and Joe Schoen are certainly hoping so. Appreciate the time, Patty. And for continuing coverage of the Giants, subscribe to Locked On Giants wherever you get your podcasts. And for more on Jaxson Dart, let's hear from Locked On SEC host Chris Gordy, who's spent a lot of time covering Jaxson up close.
Jaxson Dart is a sleeping giant in this year's NFL draft. What's up, everybody? Chris Gordy here from Locked On SEC, and Jaxson Dart is the guy that a lot of scouts seem to be sleeping on among the quarterbacks in this draft. Of course, Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders get a lot of the attention, but you look at some scouts, they look at Jaxson Dart, and they have raved about his arm talent. A guy who finished 3rd in all of college football last season in passing yards. He got better every year at Ole Miss. Played as a freshman at USC, transferred over to Oxford, where he was able to be molded by Lane Kiffin. 3,300 passing yards in 23. 4,200 passing yards last season, 72 career touchdown passes in 3 seasons at Ole Miss. But how about as much as they threw it? Just 5 interceptions in 23. and only 6 last season. He takes care of the football for as much as they throw it. And you got to love his running ability too. I mean, that is something that, is underrated in the NFL with quarterbacks. You got to be able to move over 1,500 career rushing yards with over a dozen rushing touchdowns as well. Jaxson Dart can move. And some concern about his ability to run a pro-style offense. I get it. Maintaining that poise in the pocket. And you look at Lane Kiffin's quarterbacks he's coached, guys like Matt Barkley and Matt Corral, a question if Dart will fold into a mold of those guys. But to me, if Dart goes to a team with an offensive coordinator that understands his strengths and weaknesses, there's a chance we could look back and say Jaxson Dart was perhaps the best quarterback in that 2025 NFL draft. For more on the SEC, subscribe to Locked On SEC wherever you get your podcasts.